Hi all, welcome to another video on adaptive cards. Adaptive cards is a way in which developers can exchange data and content in a common way, and the JSON payload used for creating the card can be used in any device or UI framework. In addition to that, there is no programming requirement for building these cards as the structure is completely defined by JSON, which is JavaScript object notation. In addition to it, we can style the card in a standard way so that it appears consistently across different platforms. Now, the card authors can describe their content as simple JSON object and use it to display data or even take input from end users using the card. And the content can be rendered natively inside a host application like Microsoft Teams, Outlook, Power Virtual Agents, etc. In this video, we will see how we can create an adaptive card and set it out from Power Automate to Microsoft Teams that displays the information to end user and accepts an input from the user. So the business use case that we'll be using for the demo is we have a SharePoint list with the columns like vendor, procurement item, vendor code price, etc., where the user will actually come and create a new item and enter the details for the procurement of the particular procurement item and mention a vendor's code price. And clicking on create will actually create the item which will trigger the Power Automate that will send out an adaptive card to the end user who is the finance approver. Now he will get a adaptive card like this which contains a banner. Followed by that, we have the information like a new bid has been submitted and the details of the bid. Now he can actually go ahead and approve the bid by mentioning a bid amount. Let's say 5,000 is too much, and we will say 4,500 is a bit more approved bid amount, and he can click on approve procurement bid. And this will again send back the data to Power Automate, which will update the list back with the approved amount and say that the finance control approval has been done. This way, we are actually automating a finance bid approval using Power Automate and adaptive cards. Now, we'll also see how we can actually get this particular image, which is the banner for adaptive card, which is stored within the documents library, and show it in the adaptive card. So let's head back to the Power Automate and create automated Cloudflow using the when an item is created trigger. We will connect to the SharePoint and mention the list from which we are going to retrieve the items or on which list item creation the workflow has to be triggered. So we will be mentioning the procurement list. Now, next thing to do is we will be adding a get file content action so that we can get the banner that we are going to use for displaying in the adaptive card. So in the file identifier, we will navigate to the shared documents and we'll specify the banner image that we want to show in the adaptive card. Followed by that, we will add a compose action because in order to show the image, we need to convert this into base64 formatted content, for which we'll use the expression base64 and mention the output of the get file content so that it will be converted into base64 formatted image content, which we can directly use in the adaptive card. Let's add the next step, which is the primary step, the post adaptive card, and wait for a response action so that we will post the adaptive card to the teams and wait for the user to enter some input until which the Flow will actually wait for the adaptive card to return a response. So we will post as a Flowbot and the option post in will use the chat with Flowbot. And within the message, we will give the adaptive card that has to be rendered, which defines a structure for the adaptive card. And in the updated message, that is when the user approves the adaptive card or enters the user input, we will show a message to the user, which is being described here. Let's keep what is being there already, which is thank you for your response. And in the recipient, we will mention to whom the adaptive card has to be sent. And within the body, we will just mention the adaptive card JSON that we will be using. So within the JSON, we can see that there are different attributes that define the structure of the JSON. So the root object is the type, which indicates adaptive card. Followed by that, you have the body, which defines like what are the elements that will be present in the adaptive card. Now here we can see that there are multiple elements that comes up, and there is an image followed by that there's a subtitle, and there's a fact set. So Fact set means that you can display key value pairs like this with what is the key, the vendor is the key, and the values violent. Same way, like there are action sets as well, which displays the button, which includes like a submit button to approve the procurement bid. Same way, we have added an input text so that he can enter the approved bid value first and then approve the bid so that this value will be returned back to Power Automate for further processing. So looking at the structure in detail, we can see that the body has different elements. The first one is the type image, which we saw is the banner. And here we are actually showing the base64 formatted content of the image, which we have extracted using the get file content action. And we are also styling it by centering it using the horizontal alignment attribute. Followed by that, we have a text block, which shows the subtitle that the new bid has been submitted. Then we have the fact set, which is another element, which shows the key value pair of the vendor procurement item and the vendor code price, which are again obtained from the SharePoint list item, which has triggered the Power Automate. Followed by that, you have the text block, where the user can enter the approved bid value. And finally, we have the actions, which indicates like a submit button where you can click on it to submit the approved bid amount so that the control will actually come back to Power Automate, because right now we can see that we post the adaptive card and we are waiting for a response. So clicking on the submit button will actually retrieve the control back to Power Automate for further processing. Now, in order to continue, we will add a compose action, which will help us get the data that has been sent from Microsoft Teams. Now we will initialize a variable which will be used to capture the value of the final bid, approved bid value, which has been sent across by the finance controller while he was approving it. So we will just mention it as where final approved bid price of string, and we will just try to get the output from the adaptive card, which will help us capture the final bid value. And you can see that there are no dynamic content that is populated for the post adaptive card and wait for a response action. Now this is a bit of anomaly with the post adaptive card and wait for a response. So to overcome this, we will just remove this output, or basically the dynamic content that has been added to the post adaptive card action. Now, if we go down and try to see if we can get the dynamic content, we can now see that the dynamic content is becoming visible, and we can go ahead and get the final bid value as well. This way, we will be able to get the whatever value that was added to the input text box, that is in this input text box by the finance controller, and we can use it within Power Automate. So this is a bit of a anomaly for which we have found a workaround. We will now again go back and reset the values that has been there previously, because yeah, we need to actually use it for posting the adaptive card, right? So we'll just go ahead and get the output of the base64 converted image file and add it to the output, and then we'll subsequently add the vendor value here. We'll have the procurement item added. We'll also have the vendor code price re-added. So we have retained the values which was there previously in the adaptive card structure, and we also now got the final bid value. Now the next step is we will be using these values to update the SharePoint list item back, because the item that was created recently do not have the approved bid value. So we'll update the item, and we'll just connect to the SharePoint list as well. We'll use the same ID which of the list item which has triggered the flow. And in the finance controller approved bid value, we will just enter the variable which holds the value which has been transferred back from the Teams adaptive card to Power Automate. So with this, we have completed the creation of the Power Automate that will send the adaptive card to Microsoft Teams, as well as get back the value which was entered within the adaptive card. Let's go ahead and save the flow. And once it is saved, we will just go ahead to our SharePoint list and create a new item. We'll just create a new item with a title of new procurement. and we will add a product name with a vendor quote price of 5000 USD. Finance controller upload would be no initially because we'll be expecting the controller to update the approved value, and then we will be updating this boolean from within Power Automate. So we have created the item, and this should ideally kickstart the Power Automate, and it should send a adaptive card to the user or the finance controller in Microsoft Teams. We can see that the adaptive card has now been sent by Power Automate for approval to the finance controller, which shows the band that has been picked up from the SharePoint document library with the title as well as the details from the SharePoint list item that we have created. So we'll just go ahead and give the approval amount as 4,500 and approve the bid, which will give you the thank you response, and we'll head back to the Power Automate to see like the status of the Power Automate, and we can see that it has posted the adaptive card and it has got back the value as well. And you can see that in the submit action ID, which is basically the input we have used for accepting the user input, it has got back the value, and we have got that value into the variable. And finally, we are updating it back to the SharePoint list. We are setting the finance control approved value as true. And we can see that in SharePoint list as well, the value has been correspondingly updated. So thus we have seen like how we can use Power Automate to send an adaptive card for accepting user input into Microsoft Teams, and then get back that value within Power Automate and use that for further processing. This way we can automate data collection from users using Power Automate in a more better user experienced way. So we will come up with more of such scenarios where we will use adaptive cards and Power Automate in unison so that we can automate much better business processes on a day-to-day basis. So thanks all for watching, and we will see you soon in another video.